Welcome to The Explainer. If you're leading a business, I bet you're hearing one thing over and over. You need AI. But which tools? And more importantly, how do you avoid just burning thousands on software that ends up collecting digital dust? Well, in the next few minutes, we are going to build a super clear, actionable guide to creating an AI stack that actually delivers a real return on your investment.
So let's just start with a hard truth, shall we? Right now, the AI landscape is totally flooded with these shiny new tools. But for most businesses, they're just expensive paperweights. And look, this is a huge problem. It's not just a feeling either. The numbers behind this are, well, they're pretty staggering.
Yeah, 80%. A recent report found that's how many businesses are paying for AI subscriptions that don't improve a single measurable outcome. I mean, think about that. That's a colossal amount of wasted budget and potential just going right down the drain. So, how do you make sure you don't become part of that statistic?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How do you tell the difference between a real game changer and just another expensive distraction? Well, that is exactly what we are here to do. We're going to cut through all the hype and give you a clear framework for building an AI tool stack that actually pays for itself. Okay, so the core of the problem is what we call the AI hype trap. And we've all been there. You see some mind-blowing demo online, you get swept up in all the buzz, and you buy the tool, only to realize, wait a minute, this doesn't actually fit into how my team really works from day to day.
I'm sure you've seen them. Those articles titled The Top 15 AI Tools You Absolutely Must Have, right? They give you this long list of features, but they never answer the one question you actually need to know. Which one of these is going to solve a specific problem for my business with my team and my existing software?
So let's just forget the hype for a second. The solution here isn't about finding one single magical tool that does everything. No, it's about building a strategic three-layer stack where everything works together like a system.
And here's that framework. It's a simple three-layer stack. You start with layer 1, a powerful, general-purpose foundation AI. You can think of this as the brain. Then you use layer 2, an automation connector, to act as the nervous system that wires that brain into all your other apps. And only then, once that core system is up and running, do you add layer 3, specialized tools to fill in very specific gaps. All right, let's dig in, starting right at the bottom of that stack with layer 1, the foundation AI. This is the brain of your whole operation. It's going to be the central tool your team uses for thinking, for writing, for analysis, and for research. So in 2026, you've got 3 main contenders for this foundation AI: Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini. And honestly, each one has its own superpower. Claude is the absolute champion for long-form writing and deep document analysis. ChatGPT is the most versatile all-arounder. And Gemini, well, it's the obvious choice for any team that's living and breathing inside the Google ecosystem. And check this out. This is where it gets really interesting. When users compared the outputs in blind tests, so they had no idea which AI made what, some really clear winners emerged. Claude actually won 4 out of 8 categories, especially in things like writing and complex reasoning. ChatGPT dominated strategy sessions, and Gemini was a really solid performer across the board. So what's the bottom line here? It's simple. Match the tool to the job. ChatGPT is your go-to for versatility, for brainstorming new strategies. But if you ask it to draft a 3,000-word report or review a really dense legal contract, it can start to lose focus. And that's exactly where Claude shines. It is the undisputed champion for those long, complex tasks where logical consistency is absolutely everything. And then, of course, there's Gemini. Look, if your team runs on Google Workspace, this is pretty much a no-brainer. The AI isn't some separate app you have to open. It's woven directly into Docs, Sheets, and Gmail. That deep integration is its absolute killer feature, and it makes it incredibly valuable for any team already in that ecosystem. Okay, so you've picked your AI brain, but a brain on its own is kind of useless without a nervous system, right? That's layer 2, the connectors. This is how you wire your AI into everything else you use, turning a bunch of separate apps into one automated, intelligent system. And this, my friends, is where the real magic happens. Just imagine this. A new client fills out a form on your website. Instantly, an entry is created in your database. Then your AI generates a complete project brief. Your team gets an alert in Slack, and a task is created in your project manager. And the best part? That whole sequence happens automatically, saving hours and hours of manual admin work on every single new project. So you've got 2 main players here, Zapier and N8N. Think of it like this. Zapier is incredibly easy to use, especially for non-technical teams, and it connects to over 8,500 apps. It's the fastest way to get started. For more complex, multi-step AI pipelines, N8N is the choice for more technical teams. It's more powerful, you can host it yourself for data privacy, and you don't pay for every single task. Okay, now this is really important. Only after you've got your foundation and your automation layers humming along smoothly should you even think about layer 3. You only consider these tools after the first 2 layers are set. These are the specialists, the hyper-focused solutions for a single specific problem that you've already identified. So, for example, if your team realizes that critical decisions made in meetings are getting lost in the shuffle, you might add a tool like Fireflies.ai to automatically transcribe and summarize them. Or if your marketing team is spending hours manually creating dozens of ad variations, you'd add AdCreative.ai. See the pattern? You're not just buying a cool gadget, you're plugging a very specific hole that you've already identified. So we have the framework, we've got the theory down, but how do you actually apply it? Let's get really practical and walk through an ROI-driven approach to building the absolute perfect stack for your business. Seriously, before you even think about pulling out the company credit card for any AI subscription, you have to run this super simple 4-step test. First, identify a manual task that wastes more than 2 hours a week. Second, use the tool's free trial on that exact task. Third, actually measure the time you saved versus the time you spent editing the AI's output. And finally, calculate the ROI. My rule of thumb, if it's not giving you at least a 3x return on your investment, just walk away. So what does that actually look like in the real world? Well, here are a few sample stacks based on your company's size. For a solo operator, a simple stack of, say, Claude and Zapier might be all you need. A small team might add something like Grammarly Business, or maybe use the built-in AI features in a tool like Notion to streamline documentation. And of course, a mid-sized company is going to need a more strategic approach with enterprise-grade tools and department-specific solutions. So, to wrap this all up in a neat little bow, remember this. Always, always start with Tier 1, your foundation AI and your automation connector. These are the tools that are going to deliver a measurable impact within the first 30 days. Everything else is a nice-to-have that you should only consider after you've totally mastered the fundamentals. And this whole strategic approach is coming at the absolute perfect time. According to the research firm Gartner, generative AI is now in what they call the trough of disillusionment. Now, you might hear that and think it sounds bad, but it's actually fantastic news for us as buyers. It just means the initial crazy hype is over, and now companies have to compete on real-world value, which leads to better pricing and more practical tools for all of us. And that leaves us with one final and kind of provocative question to chew on. Gartner also predicts that by the end of 2026, 40% of the enterprise apps you already use will have their own AI agents built right in. So, as you build your stack, you have to ask yourself, is that shiny new AI tool you're looking at a smart investment? Or is its killer feature about to become a free update in the software you already own?